You gave her everything. Your time, your energy, your heart. You were the perfect gentleman, always there when she needed you, always putting her first. You listened to her problems, supported her dreams, and treated her like a queen. Yet somehow, she still walked away. And now you're left wondering what you did wrong, replaying every conversation, analyzing every moment, searching for the mistake that cost you everything. But what if I told you that doing everything right was exactly what went wrong? What if the very perfection you thought would keep her was the thing that pushed her away? Today, we're going to explore this painful paradox through the lens of ancient Stoic wisdom and discover why sometimes being too good can be the greatest mistake of all. Marcus Aurelius once wrote that we suffer more in imagination than in reality. Right now, you're probably imagining all the ways you could have been better, all the things you should have done differently. But the Stoics understood something profound about human nature that modern dating advice often misses. They knew that attraction isn't logical, that desire doesn't follow the rules of fairness, and that sometimes the harder you try to hold on to something, the more likely it is to slip through your fingers. Let me tell you about David. David was everything a woman should want. Successful career, great sense of humor, emotionally available, and completely devoted to his girlfriend Sarah. For 2 years, he was the model boyfriend. He remembered every important date, surprised her with thoughtful gifts, and never once raised his voice or started an argument. He was so focused on being perfect that he forgot to be human. Sarah left him on a Tuesday. No big fight, no dramatic revelation, no third party involved. She simply said she didn't feel the spark anymore, that something was missing. David was devastated. How could someone leave when you'd done everything right? But the Stoics would tell David that his mistake wasn't in what he did, but in what he didn't do. He didn't challenge her. He didn't maintain his own identity. And most importantly, he didn't understand that love without tension is like a song without rhythm. The ancient Stoic philosopher Epictetus taught that we cannot control what happens to us, only how we respond to it. But many men misinterpret this wisdom. They think it means they should accept everything, never push back, never create waves. They become so focused on controlling the outcome of the relationship that they lose control of themselves. They become people pleasers, yes men, emotional doormats disguised as caring partners. But here's what the Stoics really understood about human psychology. Desire is born from uncertainty. Attraction thrives on challenge. Respect grows from boundaries. When you remove all friction from a relationship, when you make yourself completely predictable and always available, you don't create security. You create boredom. Think about it. What do you value more? Something you earned through struggle and effort, or something that was handed to you freely? The answer is obvious. Yet in relationships, many men hand themselves over completely, believing that their devotion will be treasured. Instead, it becomes taken for granted. Seneca wrote about the importance of maintaining your own character, your own values, your own path, regardless of external circumstances. But when you're desperately trying to keep someone, it's easy to lose sight of who you are. You start molding yourself to fit what you think they want. You stop having opinions that might cause conflict. You stop pursuing your own interests if they don't align with hers. You become a reflection of her desires rather than a man with his own. This is where many good men go wrong. They think love means sacrifice, and while sacrifice is important, complete self-sacrifice is not love. It's self-destruction disguised as devotion. When you erase yourself to make room for someone else, you don't become more lovable. You become invisible. Let me share another story. Marcus was dating Jessica for 8 months. He was head over heels and he showed it constantly. Every text was answered immediately. Every plan revolved around her schedule. Every decision considered her opinion first. He thought he was being respectful and caring. Jessica felt suffocated, not because he was clingy or needy, but because he had no substance of his own. She fell in love with a person, but found herself dating a reflection. The breakup conversation was telling. Jessica said she felt like she was dating herself, that there was no challenge, no growth, no mystery. Marcus had become so agreeable that agreeing with him meant nothing. His compliments felt empty because he never disagreed with anything. His support felt hollow because he supported everything indiscriminately. This is the paradox of excessive niceness. When you agree with everything, your agreement becomes worthless. When you support every decision, your support becomes meaningless. When you never challenge someone, you never help them grow. And without growth, relationships stagnate and die. The Stoics taught that virtue lies in balance, and this applies to relationships as well. Yes, be kind and supportive, but also be honest and challenging. Yes, be available and caring, but also maintain your own life and interests. Yes, compromise and adapt, but never at the expense of your core identity. Epictetus had a famous saying about the difference between what is up to us and what is not up to us. Your partner's feelings are not up to you. Their decisions are not up to you. Their level of attraction and commitment is not up to you. What is up to you is how you show up in the relationship as a complete, authentic human being. When you try to control someone else's feelings by being perfect, you're attempting to control something outside your influence while neglecting something entirely within it, yourself. This backwards approach to relationships is why so many good men end up alone while wondering what they did wrong. But let's dig deeper into the psychology of attraction. Why do people leave partners who treat them well? It's not because they enjoy being treated poorly, it's because attraction operates on multiple levels, and kindness alone doesn't satisfy all of them. There's the emotional level, where we need to feel challenged and intrigued. There's the intellectual level, where we need stimulating conversation and different perspectives. There's the spiritual level, where we need to see strength and character. And yes, there's the physical level, where confidence and self-assurance play crucial roles. When you focus only on being nice, you're addressing just one dimension of attraction while neglecting the others. You become emotionally safe but intellectually boring. You become predictable but not particularly interesting. You become caring but not particularly exciting. The Stoics understood that true strength comes from self-discipline and self-knowledge. A man who knows himself, who has firm principles and boundaries, who pursues his own goals and interests while still being caring and supportive, that's attractive. That's someone worth fighting for, someone who adds value to a relationship rather than just reflecting it back. Consider the story of Alexander, who dated Emma for 6 months. Alexander was successful, kind, and thoughtful, but he also had strong opinions about politics, philosophy, and life in general. Sometimes Emma disagreed with him, and they would have passionate discussions that lasted for hours. Alexander never tried to convince Emma to change her mind, but he also never backed down from his own beliefs. He supported her career ambitions while actively pursuing his own. He made time for her, but also maintained his friendships and hobbies. When Emma's friends asked her what she loved about Alexander, she didn't talk about how nice he was or how well he treated her. She talked about how he challenged her thinking, how he inspired her to be better, how she never knew exactly what he was going to say next. She felt like she was dating a complete person, not just a boyfriend. This is what many men don't understand. Women don't just want to be treated well. They want to be with someone who is worth being treated well by. They want to respect the person they're with, and respect isn't earned through submission. It's earned through strength, character, and authenticity. The Stoic concept of preferred indifference is relevant here. The Stoics taught that while some things are good virtue, And some things are bad vice. Many things are indifferent, neither inherently good nor bad. These include things like wealth, reputation, and yes, romantic relationships. They can be preferred because they generally make life more pleasant, but they shouldn't be the source of your happiness or self-worth. When you treat a relationship as if it's the most important thing in your life, you put pressure on it that it can't sustain. You start making decisions from a place of fear rather than wisdom. You start compromising your values to avoid conflict. You start prioritizing temporary peace over long-term respect. But when you understand that your happiness and self-worth come from within, from your character and your virtue, then you can enter relationships from a position of strength. You can be loving without being needy, supportive without being submissive, caring without being careless with your own needs. Let's talk about the specific behaviors that often drive partners away, even when they come from good intentions. First is the constant availability. When you drop everything every time she calls, when you change your plans to accommodate hers, when you have no life outside of the relationship, you're not being romantic. You're being overwhelming. Everyone needs space to miss someone, space to appreciate what they have. Second is the lack of challenge. When you agree with everything she says, when you never push back on bad ideas, when you never offer a different perspective, you become intellectually irrelevant. People want partners who make them think, who help them grow, who aren't afraid to disagree respectfully. Third is the absence of mystery. When you share every thought, every feeling, every detail of your day, you leave nothing for her to discover. Mystery isn't about being secretive or dishonest. It's about maintaining some independence, some private thoughts and experiences that make you a complete person rather than just half of a couple. Fourth is the failure to maintain standards. When you accept behavior that violates your values just to keep the peace, you're not being understanding. You're teaching someone that your boundaries don't matter. And if your boundaries don't matter to you, why should they matter to anyone else? The Stoics taught that we should be like a rock in a storm, unmoved by external circumstances, while still being responsive to legitimate needs. In relationships, this means being emotionally stable and reliable while still maintaining your own identity and standards. It means being the kind of person others can depend on without being someone they can walk all over. Marcus Aurelius wrote that very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking. This applies perfectly to relationships. The quality of your relationship isn't determined by how perfectly you treat your partner. It's determined by how authentically you show up as yourself while still being loving and considerate. Think about the people you most respect and admire. Are they the ones who never disagree with you, who always tell you what you want to hear, who drop everything to accommodate your every whim? Of course not. You respect people who have their own opinions, their own goals, their own sense of self. You respect people who are kind but not weak, supportive but not submissive. The same principle applies to romantic relationships. Respect is the foundation of lasting attraction, and respect cannot exist without some degree of challenge and independence. When you make yourself completely transparent and predictable, when you have no mystery or edge, when you never create any tension or excitement, you may feel like you're being the perfect partner, but you're actually removing the very elements that keep attraction alive. Now, I'm not suggesting you should be difficult or argumentative or play games. The Stoics despised manipulation and dishonesty. What I'm suggesting is that you should be authentically yourself, complete with your own thoughts, opinions, goals, and boundaries. Be kind and loving, but don't sacrifice your identity for the sake of avoiding conflict. Let me tell you about Robert and his relationship with Lisa. Robert was naturally agreeable and hated conflict, so when Lisa made decisions he disagreed with, he stayed quiet. When she criticized his friends, he stopped seeing them as much. When she wanted to spend every weekend together, he cancelled his own plans. He thought he was being a good boyfriend by prioritizing her happiness over his own preferences. But after 18 months, Lisa ended the relationship. She said she felt like she was dating a ghost, someone who had no real substance or opinions. She actually missed the passionate discussions she'd had with previous boyfriends, even the ones that sometimes led to arguments. She wanted to be with someone who had enough self-respect to stand up for himself occasionally. Robert was confused and hurt. He'd done everything he thought you were supposed to do in a relationship. But the Stoics would tell Robert that his mistake was fundamental. He tried to control Lisa's feelings about him by erasing himself. He thought love meant agreement, but love actually requires two complete people choosing to be together despite their differences. The ancient Stoics faced this same human tendency to lose themselves in their attachments. They developed practices and perspectives specifically designed to maintain personal strength and authenticity, even in close relationships. They understood that you cannot love someone else authentically if you don't first know and respect yourself. One of the most important Stoic practices is morning reflection, taking time each day to remember your values, your goals, and your identity, independent of other people's opinions or reactions. When you start each day by connecting with who you are at your core, you're less likely to lose yourself in your interactions with others. Another crucial practice is evening review, honestly examining your actions and decisions throughout the day. Did you compromise your values to avoid conflict? Did you say what you really thought or what you thought someone wanted to hear? Did you act from strength and authenticity or from fear and people-pleasing? The Stoics also practiced negative visualization, imagining the loss of things they valued. This wasn't pessimism, it was preparation. By regularly contemplating the possibility of losing a relationship, you reduce your attachment to it and increase your ability to show up authentically within it. When you're not desperately afraid of loss, you're free to be yourself. But perhaps the most important Stoic insight for relationships is the concept of focusing on your own character rather than trying to control outcomes. Instead of asking, "How can I make her love me?" ask, "How can I be the kind of person worth loving?" Instead of wondering, "What does she want me to say?" ask, "What do I actually think and believe?" This shift in focus changes everything. When you're focused on controlling someone else's feelings, you become reactive and inauthentic. When you're focused on developing your own character, you become attractive and magnetic. People are naturally drawn to those who are secure in themselves, who have their own direction and purpose. Let's explore what this looks like in practical terms. It means having your own hobbies and interests that you pursue, regardless of whether your partner shares them. It means maintaining friendships and social connections outside of your romantic relationship. It means having goals and ambitions that exist independently of your relationship status. It also means being honest about your thoughts and feelings, even when they might create temporary discomfort. If you disagree with the decision your partner is making, say so respectfully but clearly. If you need time alone or with friends, ask for it without apologizing excessively. If something violates your values or boundaries, address it directly rather than hoping it will resolve itself. This doesn't mean being selfish or inconsiderate. The Stoics valued kindness, compassion, and service to others. But they understood that true service comes from strength, not weakness. You can be more genuinely caring and supportive when you're operating from a position of self-respect and authenticity. Consider the difference between these two approaches to supporting a partner's career change. The people-pleasing approach says, "Whatever makes you happy makes me happy. I'll support whatever you decide." The authentic approach says, "I can see how passionate you are about this opportunity. I have some concerns about the financial implications, but I believe in your ability to make it work. How can I best support you through this transition? Both responses are supportive, but the second one shows that you're actually thinking about the situation, that you have your own perspective, and that your support comes from genuine consideration rather than reflexive agreement. Which response would you respect more from a partner? The tragedy of many failed relationships is that they end not because of conflict or incompatibility, but because of boredom and stagnation. When you remove all friction and challenge from a relationship, you also remove the opportunity for growth, excitement, and deepening connection. The couples who stay together longest are usually those who continue to surprise each other, who maintain some independence and mystery even in their intimacy. This brings us to one of the most counterintuitive truths about relationships. The people who are most desperate to keep someone are often the most likely to lose them. Desperation leads to people-pleasing, which leads to loss of identity, which leads to loss of respect and attraction. The people who are most secure in themselves, who would be okay even if the relationship ended, are the ones who inspire the deepest love and commitment. The Stoics called this concept preferred indifference. You can prefer that your relationship works out. You can work hard to make it successful, but your happiness and self-worth aren't dependent on it. This paradoxical approach, caring deeply while holding lightly, is what allows you to show up authentically and attractively in relationships. Marcus Aurelius faced this challenge in his own life. As Emperor of Rome, he had immense responsibilities and pressures. He could have tried to please everyone, to avoid all conflict, to be universally loved. Instead, he focused on being true to his principles and values, even when it meant making unpopular decisions. His strength and authenticity, not his agreeableness, earned him lasting respect and admiration. The same principle applies to romantic relationships. Your partner doesn't need another friend who always agrees with them. They have plenty of friends already. What they need is a partner who challenges them to grow, who brings their own unique perspective and energy to the relationship, who is interesting and substantial enough to merit their time and attention. This is why the advice to just be yourself is both the most important and the most misunderstood relationship guidance. Many people interpret it as, don't try to improve yourself, or accept all your flaws. But the Stoics understood that being yourself means being your best self, the person you're capable of becoming when you live according to your highest values and principles. Being yourself doesn't mean being selfish or inconsiderate. It means being authentic while still choosing to be kind, honest while still being tactful, independent while still being committed. It's a balance that requires wisdom and practice, but it's the only foundation for relationships that are both loving and lasting. Let's examine what went wrong in relationships where everything seemed right on the surface. Often these relationships fail because they lack what psychologists call differentiation. This is the ability to maintain your own identity while being emotionally connected to another person. It's the difference between loving someone and losing yourself in someone. When you differentiate properly, you can be intimate without being enmeshed, close without being codependent, supportive without being enabling. You can disagree without being disagreeable, set boundaries without being selfish, maintain independence without being distant. The women who leave perfect boyfriends aren't looking for someone who treats them worse. They're looking for someone who treats them well while still being a complete, interesting person in their own right. They want partnership, not worship. They want love, not submission. Think about your own friendships. Your best friends probably aren't the ones who agree with everything you say or do whatever you want. Your best friends are the ones who care enough to tell you the truth, who challenge you to be better, who have their own lives and interests that enrich your conversations and experiences together. Romantic relationships need these same elements to thrive. The foundation of love might be caring and compatibility, but the spark that keeps it alive comes from challenge, growth, and the continual discovery of new aspects of each other's character and personality. This is why maintaining your own identity and interests isn't selfish, it's essential. When you have your own goals to pursue, your own thoughts to think, your own experiences to share, you remain interesting and dynamic. You give your partner something to discover, something to respect, something to miss when you're apart. The Stoic Emperor Marcus Aurelius spent his mornings writing to himself about philosophy and virtue, even during military campaigns. He didn't abandon his intellectual life for his public duties or his personal relationships. He understood that maintaining his own depth and complexity made him more valuable in all his roles, not less. Similarly, when you maintain your own interests, friendships, and goals within a relationship, you don't become less devoted. You become more valuable as a partner because you're bringing more to the relationship. You have stories to tell, perspectives to share, energy and enthusiasm that comes from living a full life. But there's another crucial element that many good men miss: the importance of emotional leadership. This doesn't mean being domineering or controlling. It means being emotionally stable and confident enough to handle whatever situations arise without losing your center. When you're constantly worried about your partner's mood, when you walk on eggshells to avoid any potential conflict, when you change your behavior based on their emotional state, you're not being caring, you're being reactive. And reactive people, no matter how well-intentioned, don't inspire confidence or attraction. Emotional leadership means staying calm when your partner is stressed, being optimistic when they're discouraged, maintaining perspective when they're overwhelmed. It means being the rock that they can lean on, not because you absorb all their problems, but because you remain steady in the face of life's challenges. This is where many relationships fail, even when both people are fundamentally good and caring. One person becomes the emotional caretaker, absorbing and managing the other person's feelings while losing touch with their own emotional needs and responses. This creates an imbalance that eventually becomes unsustainable. The Stoics taught that we're responsible for our own emotional responses, and that trying to manage other people's emotions is both impossible and counterproductive. You can be supportive and caring without taking responsibility for someone else's happiness or emotional state. As we near the end of our exploration, I want to address the pain you might be feeling right now. If you're listening to this because someone left you despite your best efforts, I understand the confusion and hurt you're experiencing. It feels unfair, illogical, even cruel that doing everything right could lead to losing someone you love. But the Stoics would remind you that this pain, while real, is also an opportunity for growth and wisdom. Every experience, especially difficult ones, contains lessons that can make you stronger and wiser. The relationship that ended wasn't a failure if it taught you something valuable about yourself and about how to love more authentically. Moving forward, remember that the goal isn't to become someone different. It's to become more fully yourself while also being genuinely caring and supportive. It's to find the balance between independence and intimacy, between self-respect and love for others, between holding firm to your values and being flexible in your approach. The next time you enter a relationship, bring your whole self to it. Bring your opinions, your interests, your goals, your boundaries, your humor, your depth, your complexity. Be kind and caring, but don't disappear in the process. Challenge and inspire your partner while allowing them to challenge and inspire you. Create a relationship that's built on mutual respect and genuine appreciation. not just compatibility and niceness. Remember that the right person for you will appreciate your authenticity, not just your agreeableness. They'll want to know what you really think, not just what you think they want to hear. They'll respect your boundaries and values, not expect you to abandon them for the sake of harmony. The ancient Stoics understood something profound about human nature that remains true today. We're attracted to strength, authenticity, and character. We respect people who know themselves and live according to their principles. We want to be with partners who choose us from a position of strength, not need. So take time to reconnect with who you are outside of relationships. Pursue your interests, develop your skills, strengthen your friendships, clarify your values. Become the kind of person you yourself would want to be with. When you do enter your next relationship, you'll bring something valuable to it, something that can't be taken for granted because it comes from your own authentic self. The woman who left despite everything you did right wasn't rejecting your kindness or your care. She was responding to the absence of the very thing that makes kindness and care meaningful. A strong, authentic person choosing to offer them. Next time, be that person from the beginning. Be kind, but be yourself. Be loving, but be complete. Be devoted, but never disappear. That's the Stoic path to relationships that are both deeply loving and genuinely lasting. That's how you love without losing yourself, and how you find someone who appreciates not just how well you treat them, but who you are as a complete human being. Your past relationship taught you something valuable. Your future relationships will benefit from that wisdom. The Stoics believed that every experience, properly understood, makes us stronger and wiser. Use this one to become the kind of person who attracts love not through perfection, but through authenticity, strength, and genuine character. The journey continues, and you're better equipped for it now than you were before.